So how did you guys land this particular comic series?
How was it set up?
Yeah.
Well, my story, his story starts a lot longer before mine. You want to start with yours and I'll jump in?
Yeah, the artist on this is a guy called Steve Parkhouse, who I'd worked with several times before. We did some Sandman spin-off stories for Vertigo, and so I've known Steve a long time, and I really wanted to work with him again. So one day I just said, Steve, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to do a story about aliens. And then it kind of slowly fell into place from that.
And then once the comics were out, it was 4 years ago this month. It was October 2015. I knew the guys at Amblin, and they sent me over the alien comics and asked if I was interested in adapting them to television. And I read them and fell in love with them. They had sent me several other things. I was like, and I read this and I fell in love with it. And I've always been a fan of aliens, and I'm like, I got to do this. So, so then I started the process then, and it took me longer to get to the New York Comic Con than I thought, but it's certainly worth it.
As long as me.
Why did you fall in love with it? What was the appeal?
Well, I loved it. I mean, I love the nature of this fish out of water, this alien sort of lost in this world and stranded, but having to then assimilate, fit in, and I love the sort of humanity of that. And it's so relatable, even as an immigrant story. You know, it's almost like, it's a great thing about science fiction, how you can tell these stories through the lens of science fiction. It doesn't feel like you're standing on a soapbox. It could as easily have been a story about an immigrant who comes to America and tries to learn the language and tries to fit in because he wants to be part of a group, fit in with these people. And that's what Harry's going through. You know, we had this writer on staff this year named Nasrin Dubai, who's Iranian, and she came over from Iran to Montreal when she was a kid, and she said the way her family learned to speak English is from watching TV. So when she saw the pilot before she got the job, she really related to Harry watching Law and Order and trying to learn the language because it's exactly how she learned the language. And it dawned on me then that, you know, it sort of reaffirmed what I sort of already felt about it, which is that there's something bigger about this story than just an alien coming in. People can really relate to it.
And tone-wise, what kind of balance were you looking at? I mean, obviously there's funny moments, but there's also serious stuff. I mean, he's deciding, are we worth it?
No, it is,
So, how did you balance it?
You know, it was asked this question before, and in the end, the simple answer was I didn't intend to balance anything. I wasn't trying. I've tried that before, like, this is what shows are, and you try to hit this target, and then by the time you get to the target's moved, and now it doesn't get picked up, and you didn't write what you wanted. And so with this one, I really set out to try to be true to the character that Peter had created in Harry and the humanity of him. But as far as like balance of drama versus comedy, I just wrote what I would want to watch, you know, which is at times a dramatic story and emotional characters and everything, but it's just natural, and probably because from writing on Family Guy for 20 years, you know, that character humor just comes more naturally to me, and I just see openings comedically in some of the dialogue, and it would be very difficult to not sort of jump on that. And I just enjoy that, you know, and I think if you can come up with good comedy that is all sort of organic to the character, then it's funny but also relatable. And I just set out to write what I would want to watch, and luckily, you know, people sort of sparked to the balance and tones. If I didn't do that, I don't think I would have written this, because this type of show isn't something that's typically on TV because you can't put it in a simple box. And I think that's one of the great things about sci-fi. They're willing to take a chance on stuff that's sort of different. And this is sort of weirdly different because it's a bunch of different things, but it also kind of works. And these days, in a world where there's so much television and so much content, it helps to be a little bit different, even if it's in a subtle way. And I think the show ultimately feels a tiny bit different than everything else on TV, just because it has a bunch of different tones in it and isn't just one thing. I think people are sophisticated and they like that.
Was this easier to navigate than like Family Guy, or was it a little more difficult?
It was easier in a way because I was just writing what I wanted to, and I didn't have a template I had to go at, except for, as I said, try to be true to the character that Peter had created. But in some ways, it was much more difficult. I mean, there's so many sort of layers to it, and all the different characters, and balancing in, you know, the town storylines and the alien storylines. There's just a lot to it. So it was challenging, but in many ways it felt more natural. I think all my, you know, it was sort of written. I mean, I've spent the last 10 years studying these cable dramas while writing Family Guy, so it's sort of a mixture of both of those things in one. So it's just a natural way that I'm writing these days, and it seems to work.
What makes Alan the perfect Harry?
He just is. You know, I think there's a thing about Harry is different. There is a quirkiness about him, and yet he's still able to kind of pull off this passing for human thing. So yeah, I think Alan's perfect casting.
Yeah, it's incredible because you see him, you talk to him now, and he's so engaging and charismatic, and we'd be with him on set, and you know, making jokes and everything, and then when we're ready to call action, he'll do this thing where he gets into character and comes out of it, and he's just a different person. And he's able to somehow remove sort of most of that humanity from himself and act and really sort of encompass this body of this alien. But there's always, Alan is such a good person anyway. His humanity comes through behind that. And there's something about the specificity of that makes it so perfect. Because you don't hate him for doing these horrible things in the same way that you wouldn't hate a lion you wouldn't hate the lion. Like recently, that woman jumped into the Bronx Zoo with that lion. If you saw that,
yes.
I wouldn't have hated the lion if he ripped her apart. Nope. You know, it's like, it's a lion. What do you think it's going to do? You shouldn't have been in there. You know, like this kid, like, well, there's an alien here. You should lock your window. You know, but you don't hate him for the stuff because it's not his fault. He's an alien, and it's a wonderful sort of gift that we have writing that you can do these big, broad swings that they don't feel broad because it's true to his character. You know, if you had a normal show where this guy is, you know, climbing on top of his young boy in bed and putting his hand over him and saying, "I want to kill you," there's not a chance in hell you would like that guy. Yep. In our world, it can be funny because he's an alien and he's just an alien. He doesn't know the difference. But watching him learn the difference in that first season is going to be a great journey.
I'm curious in adapting, because it seems to be something that happens almost every day now, adapting something from the comic book to live action.
Yes.
I'm wondering, when you're looking at the source material for each of the different characters, what kind of sort of profiles do you use to sort of, you know, do your casting? Like if you say, I'm looking for this, and this because this is what I've interpreted this character to be. So how does that process work?
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, you have a sense in your head of who you want the characters to be. And one of the things I did in this time around is be open as the actors come in, if they're doing something different than what I wrote, but they're also kind of great. Like when I wrote the character of Darcy, which I added, it was not in the comic, I added Darcy, who has a backstory. So Darcy's backstory, she used to be an Olympic athlete, Olympic skier. She hurt her knee years ago, and now she's sort of back in her town. And I had written it as a much more sort of bubbly, like a happy sort of ball of light, you know, that can sort of be a little bit different than Asta has a little darkness to her. And I wrote Darcy that way, and I had a lot of actresses come in and play that, but then Alice Wetterland came in doing something completely different. And there's a quirky sort of broken darkness to Alice that she was playing, and that was way more interesting than what I wrote. And so then I cast her, and then in the process of the first season, am now sort of making the character more like her than what I had. So you have to be open sometimes to sort of see that when it happens. I didn't know, to get off the same question with Alan, I didn't know really who Harry was until Alan came in. I thought I knew who he was, and then when that guy type came in, I was like, well, that doesn't work, you know, because I don't know if I had just more of like the typical like leading man type or something, and it just wasn't funny. It either was like it wasn't funny enough, or people were playing it like too robotic alien. And I was like, I'm just hoping someone comes in and does it. I have then lost sight of what I thought it was. And then Alan came in as the very last person out of the 115 guys or something. He was the very last one, and that's when I knew what it was. He was fantastic.
With comedy, do you feel like it's almost like in a musical when a comic moment happens where a person's talking and they break into song and it just flows? Is that true with comedy too?
I think so. I mean, it's it's being aware of it, like in knowing, like in rehearsals with Corey, with Sheriff Mike, and we were talking about his character, and Corey was saying, I think my character, there's one thing that my character does that's like he's really good at. I'm like, oh, like what? He goes, I don't know, like beatboxing. I'm like, well, do you beatbox? And then he started beatboxing with Grace right there. And I'm like, how are you doing that? Like, how are you making that noise? But it was so funny that I immediately knew, well, we have to put that. That's something I would never have thought of that. We have to put that in the show. That's where we put Corey and Liz Bowen, who plays Deputy Liv, who's done improv for 20 years, hysterical. Put her in the cop car together and put cameras on them and gave them a bit of a shape for the scene, turn on the music, and then he turns it off and says, stop, I got music, and then do whatever. That was basically the direction, and then they just did it, and they were hysterical. So yeah, I think it's a lot of, with comedy, it's recognizing and acknowledging, like seeing something, like, oh, that's funny, let's go in that direction if we can. Having the flexibility to do that off the book. Okay.